Are you ready, kids?
I'm goofy too bad. La 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 la.
SpongeBob SquarePants, SpongeBob SquarePants, SpongeBob SquarePants.
Welcome everybody to a special episode of Adam the Movie Guy. I am your unhinged host, Adam, and on this episode, I'll be talking about one of the greatest cartoons to ever be created. Yeah, that's right, SpongeBob. Now, this cartoon is one of the most quotable animated series to ever be put to ink. That is not hyperbole. Ask anyone my age who grew up with it as a fan of the show. I swear they can pull out a quote. The first 4 seasons in the movie are legendary, and as far as I'm concerned, with the exception of some genuinely good episodes here and there in a few of the future seasons, particularly the holiday specials they made, the series itself was season 1 through 4, with the movie being the official canon ending of the series to me. None of that spin-off bull they did with Camp Coral and the Patrick Star Show. Seriously, the fact that they created those spin-offs came across as kind of disrespectful to SpongeBob's creator, Stephen Hillenburg, who didn't want spin-offs of the show since he reportedly saw them as a soulless cash grab, and what makes this more messed up is they were announced shortly after his death, which implies they were working on it and just waiting for this poor guy to die before officially announcing it. Seriously, what the is wrong with Nickelodeon? But that's another story for another day. What I am going to talk about in this episode is I'm going to give a very brief history of the creation of the show and its creator, Stephen Hillenburg, then discuss the characters a bit, then talk a bit about the video games I played featuring SpongeBob, then do a ranking of my favorite top 10 episodes and favorite 10 songs from the show before finally bringing it in on home with a closing segment. So, I only have one question for all you listeners.
Who's ready? Who's ready?
Let's get started. SpongeBob SquarePants was created by Stephen Hillenburg, a marine biologist and former teacher at the Orange County Marine Institute. In the year 1989, he enrolled at the California Institute of Arts, eventually landing a job at Nickelodeon, where he worked on another famous cartoon series and one that I personally love, Rocko's Modern Life. I gotta do an episode about that series in the future too. Back to Hillenburg, he started developing the idea for SpongeBob around the early 90s and worked on it until its creation and debut in 1999. Although his educational comic he created in the 80s to teach his students at the Institute called the Intertidal Zone was the foundation of the characters we would see in SpongeBob. The character Bob the Sponge was essentially a proto-version of SpongeBob. When developing the show, he originally wanted to call him Sponge Boy, but apparently since there was a mop product out there, he couldn't use that name, so he went with SpongeBob and the rest is history. And that's all for the history. Now let's get into the characters and a little bit on the setting of the show and some of the locations. But first, I want to say this podcast is sponsored by Bran Flakes, a bold new taste.
New Bran Flakes. Bold new taste. Bran Flakes.
Getting into the iconic characters of the show, first I'm going to start off with the main man himself, SpongeBob SquarePants. SpongeBob is a little yellow sea sponge who lives in a pineapple on Conch Street, and his neighbors are Patrick Star, his best friend, and Squidward Tentacles, his grumpy coworker at the Krusty Krab, where SpongeBob is the talented fry cook under their greedy and money-obsessed boss, Mr. Krabs. He has a pet sea snail named Gary and goes to Mrs. Puff's boating school where he constantly fails his driving exam. Personality-wise, he's extremely optimistic, kind-hearted, naive, loyal, and loving towards his friends and family. I mean, to put it simply, he is the heart and soul of Bikini Bottom and is a shining light of joy. SpongeBob is a perfect representation of youthful naivety and optimism that you just can't help but smile at. SpongeBob does have some negative qualities like being naive and his obsessiveness. Some of the funniest moments in the show were in the early seasons when he loses his mind or flips the out. Particularly on Mr. Krabs when he was trying to make a Krabby Patty.
Don't you get it, you crustaceous cheapskate? I can't make a double Krabby Patty with the work. I can't put a patty on a bun with lettuce, cheese, onions, tomatoes, ketchup, mustard, pickles, and top bun together in that order.
And the time when Squidward was living with him after losing his job at the Krusty Krab because Mr. Krabs accused him of stealing his first dime he ever made.
Listen, you crustaceous cheapskate! Squidward's been living at my house driving me crazy, and you're not gonna hire him back all because of a stupid dime!
Another great moment is when SpongeBob was competing with Squidward for Employee of the Month, and this lunatic, SpongeBob, breaks in Squidward's house to break his alarm clock, so he'll be late for work. But this guy Squidward has a whole closet of alarm clocks, and SpongeBob starts breaking them all one by one. Take a listen to it.
SpongeBob, what are you doing here?
You can't win that award if you don't get up for work. Huh?
Stop it, SpongeBob. If I really wanted an award, I could win it with my tentacles tied.
That can be arranged.
You're a lunatic, SpongeBob.
It's gonna be hard keeping a straight face when I reminisce about these moments. I really miss this version of SpongeBob because nowadays I feel they don't let the character lose his temper anymore or show his crazier side. A couple other aspects I miss about old SpongeBob is him being naive and childlike, although technically a grown man, wasn't as prominent as it was in the first 4 seasons and the movie. Post-movie in season 4 SpongeBob, he became too childlike in personality and he felt too sanitized, like they shaved out all his more negative qualities, which kind of sucks because that made him even funnier. One other thing in the very first season of the show, and a character I didn't mention yet, was his friendship with Sandy Cheeks, a squirrel from Texas who moved to live in the Bikini Bottom. In the first season, SpongeBob has somewhat romantic feelings for Sandy, but that got dropped in season 2. Personally, I kinda like when he was trying to impress her because it led to a lot of funny moments in the series. And another thing they both had in common was they both love karate and they were both masters at it. At least in season 1 when they were equally matched, but for some reason, they dropped that too, and now SpongeBob is clearly the inferior karate fighter, which I thought was a dumb choice. Overall, as a character, SpongeBob is one of the most iconic cartoons to ever be created, and he's up there with Mickey Mouse in terms of status. I give my life for that sponge. Next up, Patrick Star, a dumb pink starfish who lives under a rock and is inseparable with SpongeBob. Some of the funniest moments come from Patrick and his stupidity.
Don't you have to be stupid somewhere else?
Not until 4.
Funny thing is, my boss Chris asked me that same question on a weekly basis, and that's my response since that's when I take my lunch break. You know, I busted a gut the time he stabbed a jellyfish net through poor Squidward's bandaged hand.
Firmly grasp it! That'll do it.
You know what? Here's audio clips of Patrick being an idiot.
How many of you have played musical instruments before?
Is mayonnaise an instrument?
No, Patrick, mayonnaise is not an instrument. Horseradish is not an instrument either.
Is this the Krusty Krab?
No! This is Patrick! I'm not a Krusty Krab.
Cool, state-of-the-art jellyfish nets.
Touch,
Don't touch.
Wow, the harpoon from Jellyfish the movie.
touch.
Don't touch.
Look, Dr. Manowar, the guy who got stung by Big Lenny and lived.
And now it only hurts when you touch it.
Touch.
Do I have to follow you all day?
Hey, Patrick, are you angry too?
Yeah,
What's the matter?
can't see my forehead. Oh, east? I thought you said west.
West? What kind of compass are you reading, lad?
This one, sir.
That's west, Patrick.
Two aspects of Patrick I miss as a character that were prominent in the very first season of SpongeBob were that he had a somewhat rivalry and beef with Sandy on occasion. Like the time SpongeBob was sick and Sandy wanted to take him to the doctor, but Patrick wanted to help SpongeBob by himself.
Hello, Sandy?
Hiya, Patrick.
I'm calling on behalf of my patient, SpongeBob.
I'm on my way over to take him to the hospital.
That will no longer be required. He is in my care as of today.
Well, I'm coming over to take a look. I'll be over there faster than a barefoot jackrabbit on a high...
Oh, yeah, the rabbit. Don't bother, Sandy.
He also loved roasting Sandy being from Texas.
Yeah, what's so great about dumb old Texas?
What did you say?
Texas is dumb?
Don't you dare take the name of Texas in vain!
Look, Patrick, I'm Texas. Howdy, y'all.
I'm Texas too.
Howdy, y'all.
Get a dog, little Arnie. Get a dog.
Howdy, y'all.
Dogs, little Arnie.
Texas! Hey, Patrick, what am I now?
Stupid?
No, I'm Texas.
What's the difference?
Or this gem of a moment when Sandy stripped out of her diving suit and her air helmet in a fit of rage, and Patrick says this.
Need to preserve her. How long can she stay like that?
I don't know.
Sandy's a girl?
Early season 1's Patrick's stupidity was funnier since he was a dumb character who thought he was smart, where once you get to season 4 and beyond, the mother was brain dead. Overall, Patrick along with SpongeBob is such an iconic duo that the show wouldn't be complete without. Next up is Squidward Tentacles, a grumpy, bitter, sarcastic squid and both a neighbor and coworker to SpongeBob. He has high aspirations and strives to be cultured and sophisticated while he looks his nose down on everyone else. He loves playing the clarinet, although multiple times it's pointed out that he sucks, but he's convinced he's the best. Go figure. When it comes to his people skills and his work ethic, he truly doesn't give a... Listen to these sound bites to get a clear picture of his character.
Rage, fury, irritation, humiliation. Please, come again. When I'm not working. Let me guess, Tiny, a small salad?
Squidward is basically the other side of the coin when it comes to SpongeBob, and he is the biggest conflict when it comes to perspectives on the show. SpongeBob is youthful kid idealism and always strives to see the good in everything, while Squidward is a jaded, cynical adult disillusioned with life.
And what could be better than serving up smiles?
Being dead or anything else?
He has absolutely no patience when it comes to SpongeBob and Patrick's antics, like the time SpongeBob spent God knows how much money on a huge TV screen just to toss it out and play games with Patrick inside a box.
Just when I thought they couldn't get any stupider. There's something else I wanted to ask you two. What was it? Oh, yeah. Don't you two have any brains?
Or when he said he was disappointed that SpongeBob didn't get eaten in the Jaws parody episode when Mr. Krabs did, and he seemingly got killed.
Oh, poor Mr. Krabs. Gone forever out of our lives. Why could it have been me?
Yes, why couldn't it have been you?
Why do you have to go like this? Why?
Why do you have to go like this and leave me tied to this idiot?
But despite his surface-level hatred of SpongeBob, Squidward on occasion has showed that he not only does care about SpongeBob, he actually secretly likes him deep, deep down. Like the time they thought they were about to get killed by the hash-slinging Slasher, and Squidward confesses he sorta likes SpongeBob despite his usual comments.
SpongeBob, no matter what I've said, I've always sort of liked you.
Squidward, I used your clarinet to unclog my toilet.
Or the time Squidward apologized for playing a really cruel prank on SpongeBob in the April Fool's Day episode that made SpongeBob cry, where he once again not only admitted he likes SpongeBob, but the other main characters too.
All right, I'm sorry, I admit it, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to hurt you in fact, SpongeBob? I like you. I like living next door. I like hearing your foghorn alarm in the morning and your high-pitched giggling at night. I also like Gary, Patrick, Sandy, Mr. Krabs, and all the other people I'm forced to be in contact with.
Squidward is such an essential character in the show and arguably the secondary protagonist. To sum it up, if this was a shonen anime, Squidward would be the rival to SpongeBob's main hero. And I'll touch on this more later. An example would be like how Vegeta is to Goku in Dragon Ball. Or a video game example would be Squidward is the Shadow the Hedgehog to SpongeBob's Sonic the Hedgehog. Next up, we have Sandy Cheeks.
They don't call her Cheeks for nothing.
Bruh.
Sandy is a land squirrel from Texas and is both a scientific genius and karate expert. She is friends with SpongeBob and Patrick, and in Season 1 was an implied possible love interest to SpongeBob. Her traits are that she's intelligent, caring, competitive, and headstrong. So much of the comedy comes from her being from Texas and whenever her and Patrick butted heads in the earlier seasons. And whenever the series wants to do a sci-fi heavy episode, Sandy is the main character other than Plankton that the episode will revolve around. As mentioned earlier, she was a sort of love interest to SpongeBob in Season 1, but that got dumped in Season 2, which I kind of wish they kept that. Another thing I really wish that they kept was her rivalry with Patrick when it came to SpongeBob, almost as if Patrick was jealous that Sandy had SpongeBob's attention. Sandy also in the pre-movie run in the show had much more visible personality flaws, like her competitiveness and her being overly confident. Like the time Sandy said land creatures were better than sea creatures.
Proves it. Proves what? That land critters are better than sea critters.
Better at what?
Oh, darn near everything, I guess. Cattle roping and pie eating and wood chopping and flying.
What's she blabbering about?
She says land creatures are best.
Only 'cause it's true. We're best at horse riding and fur styling and rowing. Y'all got us licked and swimming. But we got corn shucking and hay baling and barn raising and fishing.
Oh!
And name calling for sure.
And drowning. Don't forget drowning.
Or the time when the Alaskan bullworm was terrorizing the Bikini Bottom, and Sandy was so overconfident in the belief she could handle it despite SpongeBob's warnings, and when she believed she defeated it, SpongeBob pointed out she just beat up its tongue, so she looks up to see it's so freaking huge, and that she is vastly in over her head.
That's not the worm. That's his tongue. Oh, this is the tongue, and the whole thing is the worm. Run for your life!
Overall, Sandy brings a lot of great fun in the series and like the catch-up to the show's French fries. They wouldn't be nearly as good if you didn't have them together.
They don't call me Cheeks for nothing.
Next up is Eugene Krabs, a sea crab Navy veteran and owner of the Krusty Krab restaurant. He is SpongeBob and Squidward's money-obsessed boss. His traits are that he's selfish, greedy, manipulative, borderline sociopathic, but ultimately does show his care for others on occasion. This guy literally once sold SpongeBob's soul for pocket change to the ghost of the Flying Dutchman.
If you had to choose between SpongeBob and all the money I have in my pocket, which would you take?
That depends. How much money are we talking about?
Mr. Krabs!
62 cents.
I take the money.
Mr. Krabs!
And the time he went grave robbing for $1 million soda drink hat.
Am I really gonna defile this grave for money? Of course I am!
Or the time he would rather let people die than pay Sandy to get rid of that Alaskan bullworm.
No! You'll never get a cent out of me! Never! I'd rather that word come in here right now and eat you all alive! Oh yeah. Sorry.
or the time he was using SpongeBob and Squidward as live bait to catch a clam that ate his millionth dollar.
There's only one use for a backstabbing crew like you. Live bait, bruh.
I can keep going, but we don't have all day. He has an intense rivalry with the character Plankton, who his competing restaurant, the Chum Bucket, can't keep up with the Krusty Krab. With a name like that, go freaking figure. They were also former childhood best friends, so in a funny way, they understand each other better than anyone else does. Mr. Krabs also has a daughter named Pearl, who's a whale. Yeah, that's right, Mr. Krabs, a crab, has a daughter that's a whale. And no, she wasn't adopted. The creator of SpongeBob, Steven Hillenburg, and the SpongeBob wiki page confirm that she is Mr. Krabs' biological daughter, and she takes after her unseen whale mother. So, that means Mr. Krabs canonically a whale. Overall, Mr. Krabs may be one of the funniest characters in the show, along with the final main character I'm about to mention. The final main character of the cast is Sheldon J. Plankton, Plankton. He is the owner of the Chum Bucket restaurant, rival to Mr. Krabs, and is the primary antagonist of the show and villain of the SpongeBob movie. He's constantly trying to steal the Krabby Patty secret formula from Mr. Krabs, and he's thwarted every single time, mostly thanks to SpongeBob or his own incompetence. He has a computer wife named Karen.
More like computer waifu.
Wow, I didn't know people like drawing Karen like that. I wonder what Bender, the robot from Futurama, thinks of that.
Stay away from our women! You got mental fever, boy! Mental fever!
Understood. Thanks for the dropping by, Bender. Back to Plankton. His traits are obsessive, diabolical, insecure, rude, and hostile. Some of the most savage moments come from Plankton roasting people.
Ladies and gentlemen, turn your attention to the southwest corridor. Other way! Finger toes. And stop! Shut your mouth, you mediocre clarinet player.
Mediocre?
Quit wasting my time!
Hey! You can't talk to my son that way! Who do you think you are?
I'm Plankton, you old hag, and your son smells like boogers! Hey! You can't talk to my wife that way! What do you think this is? I think it's time for you to lose some weight, fatty! That's what it is!
Hey, you can't talk to my grandson like that. Someone ought to put you in a mental hospital.
Someone should put you in a box floating down the river, Grandma!
One thing I really like about Plankton is that he's kind of not just a foil for Mr. Krabs, but for Sandy too, since they're both scientific geniuses. The difference being that Plankton uses his plans and scientific knowledge for evil, and Sandy for good. It kind of gives me Dragon Ball vibes with Sandy being Bulma and Plankton being Dr. Gero. See how I keep comparing SpongeBob to anime? Well, it's gonna come back in a big way later. Overall, Plankton is one of the most important characters in the series as the default villain, and he does an amazing job at it. Okay, starting off with Gary the Snail, SpongeBob's pet, who's very intelligent and has a poet's heart.
And now, poetry by Gary.
He has such a way with words.
Larry the Lobster, a roided-out chill lobster who works out constantly and is a lifeguard at Goo Lagoon.
Living like Larry.
Living like Larry.
Living like Larry!
Mrs. Puff, SpongeBob's long-suffering boating school teacher who may or may not be a serial killer.
What have I done? Everyone will know that I let him slide through school. I'll have to move to a new city, start a new boating school with a new name. No, not again. I've got to end this thing before it begins.
Pearl. Pearl. Mr. Krabs' whale daughter. I hate Pearl. She's annoying as it makes me wish she was harpooned by a fisherman. Bubble Bass. Food critic and enemy of SpongeBob who loves pickles. Doodle Bob, one of the biggest menaces to ever be put to animation. Bubble Buddy, SpongeBob's bubble friend he created from, well, bubbles. Joe Rogan, what do you have to say about Bubble Buddy? What are your thoughts?
Bubble Buddy is a bad motherfucker, dude. I've had him on the show. He works out with kettlebells every day. Have you ever eaten elk meat? Bubble Buddy has.
Couldn't have said it better myself, pal. Karen, Plankton's computer wife with a sexy voice.
Golly, she sure is pretty, Sheldon.
Fred the fish. Now, for those of you who don't know who Fred is, he's the fish that always screams, "My leg." It's always the same guy, and he is a legend. Patchy the pirate, the land human SpongeBob-obsessed head of the SpongeBob fan club played by Tom Kenny, SpongeBob's voice actor. Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy, superheroes and idols of SpongeBob and Patrick.
Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy, unite!
Man Ray, the dirty bubble and atomic flounder, supervillains and enemies of Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy. King Neptune and his daughter Mindy. Now, King Neptune has appeared multiple times in both the show and the first movie, and he's vastly different each time, and each time he's a massive prick, and the movie version is insecure about his bald spot.
Your Highness, I'm sure it's not that noticeable.
All right.
Nosferatu, famous movie vampire from the real-life movie, Nosferatu.
Nosferatu!
SpongeBob's parents, who look like old used-up sponges. Patrick's parents, who are almost as stupid as he is. The realistic fish head news anchorman.
Breaking news!
The Flying Dutchman ghost, and sometimes villain and sometimes ally to SpongeBob and the gang.
You bet you're really wanted to resign the Flying Dutchman. And I'll let you in on a little secret. I'm going to steal your soul.
And last but certainly not least, the French narrator.
Ah, the sea. So fascinating. So wonderful. Here we see Bikini Bottom, teeming with life. Home of one of my favorite creatures, SpongeBob SquarePants. Yes, of course he lives in a pineapple, you silly.
Well, guys, that's all of the side characters and the end of part 1 of the SpongeBob 25-year anniversary special. I was originally going to do one huge episode, but due to the size, I decided it was ultimately best split into 2 parts. For part 2, I will discuss the most famous locations on the show, then discuss the 3 SpongeBob video games I played, then I'll list my top 10 favorite episodes of SpongeBob, along with my top 10 favorite songs of the series, before bringing this all home with a closing segment. So stay tuned for the epic conclusion of Adam the Movie Guy's SpongeBob 25-year anniversary special. And remember, when in doubt, pinky out.
Are you ready, kids? I'll goofy goober!
La 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 la.
SpongeBob SquarePants, SpongeBob SquarePants, SpongeBob.